Hey guys, I'm back here at Wise Earth Farm in Kelowna, BC, Canada, and today I'd like to speak to you, especially Canadians, about an issue that we have with our Workers' Compensation Board here in British Columbia, where small farmers like John and the crew here at Wise Earth Farm are paying the same rates for workers' compensation that large-scale conventional farmers that are running big machinery are, and it's totally unfair. I mean, we don't even need to get into the sort of monopolistic nature of the Workers' Compensation Board and how there's actually no free market, there's no competition in that space. That's a whole other subject. But the fact is that it's not fair that farmers are paying rates that don't equate to the type of work that's happening here. And so what we want to do today is we're going to talk to John and demonstrate some of the things that are sort of unfair. And maybe some of the people at WCB, maybe somebody who actually cares, will look at this and see the point that we're going to make.
What we're fighting, what we've got an issue here is with WorkSafeBC. WorkSafeBC is the regulatory agent for the government of British Columbia for setting, I guess, insurance premiums for workers in case they get hurt on a job site. So, be it being construction or farming or whatever, it doesn't really matter. In case the worker gets hurt, that the worker has some sort of payment coming. So,
right.
You know, so me as a farmer have to pay a percentage premium on top of the wage that I would pay my worker to the WorkSafeBC based on the liabilities of my industry. So what we have is, this is obviously a vegetable farm, and WorkSafeBC has vegetable farming, all of them. Large, small, doesn't really matter. Any vegetable farm categorized as a 4.24 actually as of this year, 4.24%. So if I have $10,000 of wages per year, I'd have to pay 4.24 on top of that to WorkSafeBC for my premiums. Mm-hmm. So now that we understand how that works, so I don't have an issue with paying a premium, but 4.24 to me seems excessive from the research I've done what other industries might pay. And that is, I've looked into this and I've consulted with some people from WorkSafeBC and they don't really have an answer. There's just no other classification. So we have a classification right now that includes large-scale farms that might use carrot harvesters or like lots of equipment where maybe fingers get lost and limbs get lost and people get seriously hurt. And we're lumped into this and we use hand tools here.
Yeah.
So it's unfair when I look at other industries and what their rates are. And the reason I say that that's excessive is because I have a list here of going through their manual of all their different CUs, which are their different codes. And it says here a Christmas tree farmer will pay 1.85%. So a vegetable farmer is 4.24. A chicken, rabbit, etc. farmer is 1.31. A greenhouse vegetable is 2.15. A greenhouse floral is 1.49. Lawn maintenance 2.81. Landscaping 2.81.
So we're higher than landscapes.
Yeah, and I'll get into that. Garden maintenance 2.81. Plant harvesting wild 1.91. So I rattled off a bunch of numbers here. The main thing I guess that I want to say is that vegetable farming is a 4.24. Lawn maintenance and landscaping is 2.81. They get to use lawnmowers, they use hedge trimmers, they use power tools like in pretty much every day, and the chance of them getting hurt is way higher than what we are, and they're only paying 2.81 when they're asking us to pay 4.24. That is an entire, what is it, 1.8% more. Mm-hmm. So it's unfair. And I have asked to see if maybe small-scale vegetable farmers could be put into the category of a greenhouse vegetable farmer, but they say no, because if you look at, we run a small percentage of our operation is classified as greenhouses, so no, we cannot be a greenhouse vegetable farmer because we're not a greenhouse vegetable farmers, yet we do very similar work. So I'm asking WCB or WorkSafeBC to start another category for vegetable farmers, be it called micro vegetable farmers or do whatever. They'll have to assess it somehow, but anybody that uses very little power tools or tractors or whichever, it's just not fair.
Yeah.
I mean, we can look at the BCS tractor that we use, but just literally we use one gasoline powered tool on this entire farm, aside from our delivery van, but I mean, everybody has vehicles. One tool like that for an entire operation. And then we use like scissors, snips, knives, which they expect us to use. That's pretty simple. So I don't understand why the rates are so high and why they can't create another CU.
Did they give you any point of contention in like, this is the operation that makes a vegetable farm high risk? Like, are they talking about combines, and like you mentioned carrot harvesters? Like, what were the things that they said are so risky to have such a liability of 4.2%?
They don't have it.
They don't know.
They've not given me.
It seems like it's like an arbitrary number that they just threw out there.
Well, they've assessed it over the years, but vegetable farming in general over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years has been bigger operation. It's now people like us that now come in and start farming more with hand tools, and you know, we just don't pose the same risk.
Right.
I've been doing this off and on for 8 years, like and I've never hurt myself more than a little nick on my finger.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm sure there's farmers out there that farmed for 40 years and have never hurt themselves, but it's just unfair. It's not, there's no risk involved here to the tune of 4.24%.
So what we're gonna do now is show you guys some of the tools that we use on a market garden, and maybe for people who are regular viewers of this channel, this might not be that interesting, but we want to just show that there's not a lot of liability risk on a market garden that's using small tools and hand tools. Okay guys, what we want to show you now is John's just going to go through some of the primary tools that we use on a market garden and just demonstrate how they're not dangerous, and all of these tools, there's really only one or two that you could really ever hurt yourself on.
Okay, so we have your standard weeding tools. Trapezoid hoe, you use this standing up. We have a stirrup hoe, same thing, you just use that standing up, back and forth. We have a rake for raking out beds. We have a standard pitchfork, cleaning up debris. My shovel here. Standard shovel, might be a square shovel, a scoop shovel, different ones, but it's just a standard shovel. A broad fork for loosening off beds, instead of what a big operation might use, a ripping tool, a deep shank, that sort of stuff. So those are all your hand tools that we would use. Those would get used the most amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get into, this is a tilter. So it definitely has spines underneath that will spin, just powered by a 18-volt drill. But again, I'm standing behind it, and an 18-volt drill does not have that much torque on it. So this is just to loosen off beds before we plant them. Simple tool, quite safe to use, not that much risk in getting hurt. We have a standard flam weeder here, which is a torch. This is all certified. You hook up a tank to this, put it on your backpack, on the backpack, and just walk around. And this is run the same way from at arm's length, so no risk of actually burning your feet. You're never walking with it this way, you're walking along. So pretty simple. I don't think it's that risky. Here we have a transplanting tool. Same thing, used by hand, no tractor involved, no nothing. And then we have a standard rototiller here, which does hook up to a little tractor, which we will show the tractor. And this rototiller is small in scale as well. Very small. Never ever does one have the feet next to it. You walk behind it. That's it. That's the tools we use. So
let's compare. So we're comparing to the landscaper. So talk about some of the things that a landscaper does that's more risky than a market farm.
Well, first of all, a lawnmower. Lawnmower would be maybe as risky as that rototiller. The difference is they use a lawnmower every day.
Right.
We use this a couple hours a week, and one person uses that. With a landscaper, every person would use that lawnmower.
Right.
The other thing would be a hedge trimmer. A hedge trimmer would be, well,
it's like a chainsaw, essentially.
We don't have anything equivalent to a hedge trimmer. Like a hedge trimmer is, I've used one before, and they somewhat freak me out. If you've never used them before, at first you're like, oh, okay, better not get anywhere near that.
So you guys don't use a greens harvester here, but a lot of market gardeners do. Somebody who wanted to play devil's advocate might say, well, what about a greens harvester? That's somewhat of a dangerous tool.
Yeah, it can, for sure. You could hurt yourself, but is it equivalent to a hedge trimmer? Is it equivalent to a chainsaw?
Yeah.
Like, the difference is the greens harvester is run by an 18-volt drill.
Yeah.
A hedge trimmer has got a gas-powered engine.
Yeah.
Chainsaw has a gas-powered engine. I mean, you hit a chainsaw near your leg, and your leg is gone.
Right.
You take that greens harvester near you, and you're gonna gouge your leg, but what's gonna happen? A couple stitches, and that's it.
Right.
So losing an arm with a greens harvester, I doubt it.
Right.
Yeah, granted, you can also say, oh, someone could seriously hurt with the BCS, with the rototiller. Well, of course. If you run over someone with that rototiller spinning, you could kill him, yes. But so can you do with anything.
With anything, yeah.
Like, you can drive over your kid with a car and they're dead. But, like, those are all the,
Right.
So why I believe we are closer to a greenhouse operation as far as, you know, the percentages go, the liabilities go, is we would use very similar tools. In a greenhouse, they cannot bring in big tractors. They cannot bring in a carrot harvester. So they use these smaller tools. They use a rake, stirrup hoe, or their ground is covered. They use pruners. They use knives. They would use very similar tools. So all we're asking is to put us into a category closer to greenhouse vegetables. So create a classification that is representative of that.
Yeah. All right, guys, as you can see, it's obviously unfair, right? It's when you compare what a landscaping company pays that does things that in our opinion, and I'm sure most people will agree, are far more dangerous, when they pay this less than what a market gardener would pay, it's not fair. To have a higher rate for large-scale farming where you're using tractors and things that have more risk to them, it makes sense if you agree with the law, okay? So we'll give them that, but in this context it doesn't. So I've got a little petition below that if you can sign to get more signatures on it, it would be a huge help to this cause for market gardeners in British Columbia. So it's only worth signing if you are in BC. If you're not in BC, then having a signature on there isn't going to help us anyway, because the people who look at the petition will make sure that people are from BC. So you got to be a British Columbia resident to sign this petition. But if you could sign it, that would be awesome. It would really help. I'll leave it in the show notes. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.